A new report from the group Ending Community Homelessness Coalition, or ECHO, is revealing how Austin is responding to homelessness and how it's been going. Joining us now is KXAN City Hall reporter Grace Reeder to kind of break it down for us. Thanks for being here, Grace.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so this is like a nearly 30-page report. I know you've probably read every word of it.
Yep.
And one of the big takeaways in it is that we have a higher number of people experiencing chronic homelessness than the average for the rest of the country, most of the country.
Right.
Why is that, and what does that mean?
Sure. So chronic homelessness is longer-term homelessness. Those are those folks who have been homeless for years. When we think about homelessness, I think sometimes we consider those folks who live in a car for a couple weeks or a couple months, and that's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is those folks who have lived a life of homelessness and frequently have long-term conditions or disabilities as a result and leading into their homelessness. The report found that of those 60% of folks who have chronic or are chronically homeless, 45% of them have a mental illness that is severe, 30% have chronic health issues, so think diabetes or heart disease, something that keeps them from working and living a normal life, and then 30% have physical illness. And when I talked to the Ending Community Homelessness Coalition, or ECHO, they pointed to veterans in that category, folks who were injured during combat and now have a physical limitation.
I see. So I think there is a perception, at least, that the homeless population is increasing in our area. What does the report say about that? It
is. So it showed some positives and some negatives. The positives being that there are more folks who are exiting homelessness than the year prior by about 50%. There were 3,000 people who exited homelessness last year. There were about 1,500 that exited homelessness in 2022. So that's the good news. But there are also more people that are interacting with the City of Austin's homeless services. More than 8,000 people in 2023 interacted with homelessness services for the first time. So that indicates to them that those folks are entering homelessness for the first time. Whether that be resolved quickly or over a long period of time, of course, is determined on an individual basis. But it's a good indication that there are more people potentially entering homelessness than there are exiting it.
I see. Okay. And it's good that they're getting the services, too, which
Certainly
seem to be a positive in that thing. Okay. So housing is always a big deal when you're talking about homelessness and the affordability of housing. Where did Austin stand on that, according to the report?
Absolutely. So I think when we talk about how we help folks who are experiencing homelessness, there's a spectrum and a continuum. It works a little bit like a healthcare system, as David Gray, the City Homeless Strategy Officer, once explained to me. And that can be acute care, for example, an emergency room. That's the city's emergency shelters. The report showed that we need roughly 600 more of those emergency shelter beds to get to where we need to be in the next decade. But then as you move down the continuum into some longer term care, that's where you get into things like rapid rehousing. The report showed that we need 1,700 additional rapid rehousing beds. Rapid rehousing is rental help for someone who is either about to experience homelessness or maybe who was pulled off the street and put into an apartment, and the city helps them pay for that rent and those utilities. And then beyond that is permanent supportive housing. That is where people get the more intensive services. So that is mental health treatment, substance use treatment. And the report showed that we need roughly 5,000 more permanent supportive housing beds. Those are obviously the most expensive because there are services required there. Some other good news there is that the city's put a lot of focus on that recently. So there are roughly 1,200 of those already in the pipeline.
Yeah, and so that's a big number, the 5,000
that
we're needing, and this is over a period of time, right?
It is, over a decade.
They're projecting? Okay. Well, there is time. I mean, it's still not going to be an easy task,
no,
but there is time to at least try to address that. All right, Grace Reeder, thank you so much for breaking it down for us. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.